Great fabulous day, dear all. Let us move into the path of what we are adept at helping you about. Let's understand some of the few basics about human brain, the brain development. A few basics quick. We have some lobes. The frontal lobe is here. It is responsible for emotions, reasoning, planning, movement, parts of speech, creativity, judgment, and problem solving. And frontal lobe, you have the prefrontal and the frontal. You have the two divisions. And you have about here the parietal lobe, and it is responsible for processing nerve impulses related to the senses, such as kinesthetics, the touch, the pain, the taste, the pressure, the temperature, language functions. Then we have on the sides, found on either side of the brain above the ears, you call it temporal lobes. It's responsible for hearing, memory, meaning, language, emotions, learning, interpreting, and processing auditory stimuli. And back here, you have occipital lobe. It recognizes objects, is primarily for vision. A wonderful way of mechanism. The brain has all of them, plenty, so many neurons. The understanding the brain communication circuitry. It's made up of neurons that communicate with one another when they fire or talk. Neurons are very, very microscopic, and they just look as tiny. Shall I tell you? Imagine you take a pin, the head of a pin, and 30,000 neurons can fit into that head of a pin. And we have 100 billion neurons in our adult body. And these are the ones, each of these neurons can be acting like a laptop. See the humongous power within. And how the brain develops? Right from the state of the birth, right from the conception. You can just look. The conception, at conception, the sperm and egg meet to form a single cell, determining the genetic potential. And now the important part, about 60% of the genes are dedicated to the brain development. It is these genes that drive the early stage of brain development. The cells in the neural tube start to multiply at a very, very astonishing rate, reaching a maximum of 250,000 neurons a minute. Most of the brain's lifetime supply of cells are produced in just 6 months. And remember, the brain does not develop at an even pace. It tends to develop in waves, different parts of brain developing at different times, but in a predictable sequence. Brain development is affected by environmental conditions, even prior to the birth, type of nourishment the mother has, the care, the surrounding, the stimulation the fetus and the infant receives. These are the stages of development of the brain, right from 3 weeks to the newborn. You can see the growth, the kind of a development, the brain. You look at the number of neurons they generate is something phenomenal. In fact, the neurons produced are almost trillions of such neurons are available. By the time fetus is 20 weeks old, about half of these cells which are deliberately shed. The remaining cells are organized into 40 different physical areas that will broadly govern senses and skills such as vision, language, muscle movement. The average infant living in a stimulating and secure and loving environment will have sparked 500 trillion neuron connections. An infant has developed around 1,000 trillion of neuron connections, twice as many as parents. Although the connections continue to form throughout the life, they have reached their highest density of 15,000 synapses per neuron. Synapse is nothing but a neuron axon meeting on another one and firing together. Let us see now the stages of the brain development. And you will find it is imperative to give right habits or inculcate the right habits. That is to be the objective. Now hold your hearts, ladies and gentlemen. 0 to 4 years, 50% development of the brain happens. This is indeed the golden age. 4 to 8 years, 30% development. And 8 to 18 years, 20% of the development. Now, let's touch our hearts and say, how much of value we are giving to the children in those development stages? How much of the potential of a person we are really losing, not addressing this need? So, what do we know about the brain development? Scientists do say many things. Learn more about the human brain as it develops. Many of our ideas about the brain are being challenged. We are learning that some old ideas actually were myths that are being replaced with new facts and understanding. Now let us understand some of the myths and the facts. Brain development. Is it a myth? At birth, the brain is fully developed just like one's heart or stomach. The fact is, most of the brain cells are found before birth, but most of the connections among the cells are made during infancy and early childhood. Let us see another myth. The brain's development depends entirely on genes with which you are born. The fact is, early experience and interaction with the environment are the most critical in a child's brain's development. Yet another myth, a toddler's brain is less active than the brain of the college student. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact is, a 3-year-old toddler brain is twice as active as an adult's brain. Another myth, talking to a baby is not important because he or she can't understand what you're saying. Talking to young children establishes foundations for learning language during early critical periods when learning is easiest for the child. Let us go over one more myth. The children need special help and specific educational toys to develop their brain power. Fact is, what children need the most is loving care and new experiences, not special attention or costly toys. Talking, singing, playing, and reading are some of the key activities that will build the child's brain. Ladies and gentlemen, the development begins right at the birth and before birth. So why we? Let me take the quote of Aristotle. He happens to say, those who educate children well are more to be honored than who just produce them, because the latter only gave them the birth, whereas the former, the art of living well. And this art of living well, it's now we are giving it to you from the proven methodologies of Panchakosha learning, a well-researched methodology over the centuries which was forgotten in the past few centuries, and all that's proven where the West is following more diligently. We bring in that Panchakosha learning system and laced into our methodologies. It is this well-researched methodologies in empowering your child is our forte. And some of the programs are our Super Kid modules, Student Brain Booster, Pure Career Planning, and Excellence and Sustainability by Design for the youth and elders for accelerated growth. And you may ask from when we can start. We have programs to nurture the child right from the age of 3 and above. Yes, you read it right, you heard me right, you heard me say right, from 3 years and above. This is the time you must begin to nurture, and you will find the moment they are into the youth, they will be unstoppable go-getters of top-notch empowering personnel. Thank you. Visit our stall, visit our site, call us. We are very, very eagerly awaiting to help you all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.